Hello and welcome to this Managed Methods video. Today we'll be talking about how to conduct a login audit. A login audit is a way to go through the login activity in your Google Workspace environment and or your Microsoft 360 environment. This will help give you some idea of where end users are logging in from and ensure that your accounts are secure. Login activity within the Cloud Monitor platform is pulled in every 4 hours, so do keep in mind the events you're seeing are not in exact real time, so there's a little bit of a delay on that time frame there. It's really important to keep a close eye on both your staff and your student accounts. Both of those accounts are valuable to bad actors, and if an account does get compromised, it can provide a lot of access to a bad actor. On student accounts, even though those are accounts that generally speaking have less permissions and things like that, those accounts can be used to run spear phishing attacks, or if your configurations are not set correctly, that could even potentially give student accounts as a way to access very sensitive information potentially. So you want to keep a really close eye on both your staff and your student accounts, and if there are patterns emerging or odd login activity, it is worth following up and investigating that information. Just because it's a student account doesn't mean you shouldn't look into that. That's one of the things that sometimes happens where a student account isn't viewed as concerning as a staff account, but both are really important. You do not want bad actors accessing the accounts within your environment here. Now, the Managed Methods platform does have 2 default policies that are ready to go. They're going to be looking for successful logins from outside of the United States, which is the default geofence in the Cloud Monitor platform, or any suspicious successful logins from outside the United States. Again, that's the default geofence for the platform. So one of the first things you can do to take a look and get an idea of where things are, what's happening with login activity, is coming over to the Policy Violations tab, coming over to this violation type graph and selecting the 3 number here next to users. What this allows you to do is take a look at the login activity of your users and that have specifically violated policies. And this can give you a good idea if there is some kind of concerning event going on. So this gives you a good baseline of, okay, what login events are happening outside of my geofence? What login events should I potentially follow up and investigate a little bit further here? So this is a good starting off point. You can click on any of these entity names and those will take you into the login activity itself of that one individual user. You can also click the drop down arrow here to get an idea of where this user logged in from more directly that way as well too. So really important to take a look at these login events as well too. This is a good starting baseline. You can though also just start off looking at login activity more as a whole. And one of the ways to do that is going to be the geolocation login map found here at the bottom of the screen. This geolocation login map is going to take in all the various login events, and you'll see in this case we're looking at the login events of the last week. That's a time frame that can be changed, so you can change it since the last time that you logged into Cloud Monitor, last 24 hours, last week, last month, or last 3 months. By default, the United States again is the approved country within the geofence, and you'll see green pins here within the United States. That means that the logins were within an approved country. If you see login pins outside of the United States, it means that those login events were from outside the approved country list there. Any of the login events can be clicked into to take a look at further information, and that will give you some additional ideas of what's going on with that login activity more directly there. Also keep in mind that by default, the platform is looking at all login events. So you're going to see logins that were successful, logins that were failures. You're going to see logins throughout the United States, potentially especially. So do keep in mind that just because somebody logged in from somewhere that's not your exact state or your geographical region, IP address geolocation lookup is not 100% precise. So we do see some variance in that. So don't get too worried. The thing you want to look for more is patterns or lots of jumping around when it comes to that login activity. And that's also where you can use the sign-in events filter on this map to filter down and look for things more specifically, such as successful logins. Or if you want to look more for suspicious logins, you can also look for those as well. So suspicious logins that were successful. There's a lot of different event types that you can filter through as well. And certainly that's a great place to start off with and looking at information and getting a baseline from there. Moving on from the login map here, there's the login analyzer, and that's a great way to do more of a deep dive into login activity. There's 2 ways to access this login analyzer, and it's going to pull this information through in more of a spreadsheet view here. So you can access the login analyzer via this button right here next to the login map, or you can go over to the accounts tab and come in and click on the login analyzer here. Now the login analyzer to start out with is just going to pull in all the login events. So you're going to see login events that were approved, unapproved, just everything here to start off with. Within the table itself, you're going to be presented with a date and timestamp of when the login happened, who actually logged in, what was the IP address that the user used to log in, location, and if you go ahead and hover over it or scroll down, you'll see that there's also the internet service provider provided in parentheses here. There's also going to be an event type with this blue text, which is clickable. If you click into the event type, you'll be provided with some additional information on the Google Workspace inside of things. This will also include how the user actually got into the account. Did they use their Google password or something else to access the account? And then over on the right-hand side, there'll be a globe icon here, which is a link to a database called Spur. And Spur will allow you to take a look and see if this particular IP address is associated with any known VPN networks or proxies or things of that nature. So also a great resource to go ahead and do some more deep dive looks into login activity. Now there's two primary searches I like to run on the Google Workspace side of things. Only one of these searches will be necessary on the Microsoft side of things, but on the Google Workspace side of things here, the first search I like to run is an unapproved search. So what this is going to do is just look for all the login events that were from outside the United States initially here, and specifically login successes and failures. So if you're seeing a lot of login failures, one of the things you may want to do is come in and apply another filter, which is the login success filter. Now what you're looking at is just the unapproved successful logins. So this is where somebody actually got into the account, and these are the logins you do want to keep a close eye on and look for potential areas of concern here. If you're seeing a lot of login events like this, it's good to understand, why is this happening? Does this make sense? Is this somebody who's on vacation and traveling? Is this someone potentially using a VPN, or is this a situation where that's an account that should never be logging in from outside the US or outside your geofence, and this is a situation where instead now you've got a compromised account on your hand? So keep a really close eye on these login events. It's really important to go through these and see where your end users are logging in from. And realistically, you shouldn't have an absolute ton of events. If there is a situation where you're having a lot of VPN usage or things like that, which with students that certainly can happen, that's something where it might make sense to then potentially look at setting remediation or starting to potentially suspend accounts or reset passwords on students that are using VPNs, and then having principals or other folks be involved in conversations with those students about use of technology in schools and things like that, because you do not want your students on VPNs either. That's certainly VPNs are ways where they can get around certain kinds of things as well too. So really important to keep a really close eye on this information here as well too. Now in Google, there's another type of login event that's extremely important to look at, and those are going to be the suspicious unapproved logins. So Google has a login event called suspicious login successful, and these are login events where Google flags the login as suspicious, but it still lets the user access the account. A lot of times when we see these suspicious logins that are successful, there's an indication of a potential compromised account. Not always the case. There can also be VPNs or things like that in here as well too, but a lot of times it can also indicate that there's potentially a compromised account. And if you see a compromised account, one of the dead giveaways is there's going to be a lot of login events by that one user. A bad actor is not going to log in usually just a singular time. They're going to log in a lot of different times, and they're trying to hide their true location, or they're using proxies or things like that. So they're going to be jumping around quite often there. So you're looking for patterns here. You're looking for users that are consistently logging in or continuously logging in that may appear odd there. And if you do run across an account that looks odd or suspicious, you can certainly go ahead and grab that student's or staff's email ID here. If you go ahead and copy it, click the reset button here, and what you can do is you can actually paste that into the user field here. Now do keep in mind, if you have any kinds of numbers within this, after the @ symbol as part of the email address here, that's going to cause an issue with the login analyzer. So you'll just want to use a partial match here, something like this instead. The platform's really good at partial matches in this login analyzer, so feel free to use that. From there, you'll get the basic, you'll get again this login information, but now of just this one specific user. So it gives you more of an idea of their login activity as a whole. And if one of the things you notice is there's a bunch of concerning login events, but then there's a few normal login events, it can be a situation where both the bad actor and the student are both using the account, and that's not an uncommon thing to see either there. But it's better to err on the side of caution with these accounts rather than letting somebody have access that shouldn't. It's just way too dangerous to go ahead and give that kind of level of access. So you're much better suspending an account or changing a user's password than just letting that bad actor continuously log in, or even if it is the student, locking down that student account or that staff account is always advisable there. But this should give you an initial idea of what's going on with the login activity, and then from there you can certainly deep dive into this further. Now you can pull this information out too as a CSV report, and that's always good to know there as well too. One of the things you can also do is you can take this information and come back to the main accounts tab here. You'll notice I have now toggled between the accounts and the login analyzer. You can grab that one individual user in question, you can click into their account, You're then going to be presented with some initial information about login activity on just this one individual user's account. You're going to get some overall details on the account. Things like third-party applications will be found in here as well. So what kinds of OAuth tokens is this account authorized? But most importantly, you can come up to the report button in the upper right-hand corner and do a download audit activity. Now what this is going to allow you to do up to 6 months here is pull activity from Google directly. So what has this user been doing with login activity as a whole? So this will allow you to go back a little bit further. The platform looks at login activity in roughly more of a 90-day time frame, so this will go back even further there and allow you to do some more deep dive looks into that login activity. Also very helpful with looking into things like Drive, for example. So does this user have access into certain files that perhaps they shouldn't have, or things of that nature? So this can be very important as well too, to dive through and take a look at and get some ideas on as well. From there, you actually then do have the ability to take action on these accounts as well too. So you have the ability to come in here and actually suspend an account, unsuspend an account, or even change a user's password right from here as well too. So these can all be really helpful to go ahead and take action right away. Now do keep in mind there's a couple caveats with account suspension and password changes. If you're a district that runs Active Directory with their Google Workspace environment or their Microsoft 365 environment, that account suspension or password reset will be overwritten by your Active Directory. Cloud Monitor doesn't have a way to overwrite your Active Directory. So in that case, these account suspensions or password resets will be more of a temporary measure. It'll certainly buy you some time, so then you can go into your Active Directory, make the changes you need to, but do keep in mind if you are running that Active Directory, those are temporary measures. They're not going to permanently suspend the account or permanently reset the password. Also do keep in mind that you can suspend accounts or reset passwords right from this screen you're looking at here. Those actions will be found over in this right-hand actions column. You'll see here suspend an account and also then reset the user's password. So really handy to go ahead and take a look at things that way and take those actions as needed there. Now, most importantly, to cut through the noise and alert you about things that are important are the policies. And there's two different ways to access policies. The first way to access policies is going to be this View/Edit Policies button here, found in the Policy Violations tab. Or if we go all the way back out to Audit and Control here, you'll see the Policies section here, and we see in this case we have 15 enabled policies. Clicking either way will take you to the same spot here where you'll be able to take a look at those policies more directly here. I'm going to head over to the Login Policies here, so this will be its own separate tab. And you'll see there's 3 out-of-the-box login policies. So there's the suspicious successful login policy from outside your geofence or from outside the US, and then there's the successful login policy from outside the US or your geofence. There is also an unapproved IP policy. This is for specific IP addresses. This is a much less commonly used policy there, so do keep that in mind. Generally speaking, this is probably not a policy you're going to be relying on too much or at all. To start off with, for notifications are sent out every 4 hours. So every 4 hours you'll get an update on all the violations of any login policies. Do keep in mind also that login activity is pulled in every 4 hours. So new login activity will be coming in every 4 hours there. Who receives those notifications will be determined overall by this Notify Admin on Policy Violations section. You'll see there's an email field here. Multiple users can be added here, just comma separated, but this is who's going to be receiving the notifications by default overall. Now on a per policy basis, notifications can also be delegated out via the Send Email To field here. So you can certainly have different people in here if you have those notifications going to specific people who will be handling login events, but that's also an option there available as well too. And if you want more rapid notifications on login events, you want to use this Notify Admin checkmark box here. That's a great option to go ahead and receive immediate notifications as soon as it sees a login policy be violated there. Remediation can also be set on policies. If we go ahead and click the drop-down arrow, you'll see options for suspend user, reset password, or warn user. Suspend user and reset password are going to be actions that are going to actually impact the end user's account. So do keep in mind if you do suspend an account or reset a password, it does lock that user out if you're not using any Active Directory. So do keep that in mind. Warn user would send a warning message to that end user. That can have benefits if it's users where staff, for example, you've got good communication with them and they're going to respond to that. Do keep in mind though that may tip off the bad actor that you're aware that the account has been compromised or some kind of odd login activity is occurring there. You can then also generate additional login policies, and do keep in mind if you make any changes in here at all, you'll want to make sure you press the Save button here in the lower left-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner there. Clicking the Add Policy button allows you to generate new login policies. And there's two additional login policies you could add, and those would be the total login policy or the distinct login policy. The total login policy is looking for a number of login events within a 4-hour time frame, and this is going to be a number value here. So if somebody logs in successfully 5 times in 4 hours, that might be something you want to be aware of. Now, this is something you want to be careful with, and generally speaking, I'd start with no remediation on these policies initially before then setting remediation. The other option would be a distinct login policy. This is looking for distinct successful logins from different locations. So if somebody logs in from 5 different places successfully, that would be a violation of this particular policy. So these policies can help assist you and cut through some of the noise, or keep a lookout for more patterns there. So if you were to set, for example, a distinct login policy, first you always want to give the policy a name. And then I usually recommend between 4 or 5 here to start off with. And again, I wouldn't set remediation initially, but I'll go ahead and set 5 there. So you'll see this policy is then created at the bottom. I could set remediation. Again, in this case, I'd let this policy in its alert only state initially, let it find if there's any violations, investigate those violations, and then go from there. But if you do say, hey, we're having issues with lots of distinct logins that are odd, or we're noticing a lot of bouncing around, suspending the account or resetting the password may make a lot of sense there. Again, after you've made your changes there, you just want to go ahead and press save, and that will go ahead and confirm those changes there. Last thing here is, if you do notice that the geofence isn't exactly what you want, or you want to change your geofence, you certainly can do that. If you click the pencil icon here and come down to advanced settings here, you can see that you'll have an approved countries or unapproved countries. I recommend using approved countries. It's a lot easier than unapproved countries. There's a lot of countries in the world. It certainly can take you some time then if you do the unapproved countries. But you just click into here, you're able to select from a list here. If you start typing it in, it'll go ahead and find the country in question that you're looking for. So in this case here, I'm looking for Canada. Pretty easy to go ahead and pull that up. And then once you've made any changes, you can press save here. This is also where the approved and unapproved IPs are located there. Now, this is also something that can be done to tiles more as a whole, where you can actually override and do this on an individual tile basis, where you can have different approved lists on your individual tiles. So if you have a broken out environment where you have your staff and your students split apart, or that even broken down further, you can actually have that then broken down on an individual tile basis, where you say, hey, our staff we know travel to maybe a couple locations. We're going to have those countries approved. We trust when their staff are logging in from there, that's nothing of concern. But for our students, we just want the United States as an approved country. So same process here. You add in your approved countries. You press save there whenever you're done there, and then you're good to go. So that will conclude how to do a login audit within the Cloud Monitor platform. Hopefully this video was helpful in giving you an idea of how to run that audit, and provided you some valuable information in understanding the importance of keeping your login activity secure and safe.